Let me, um, so this was meant to be a graphic, and I realized that because it's not in slideshow mode, you're not seeing the kind of moving graphic here. But the intention was that, at least the way I grew up learning about this, or the kind of common sense I absorbed about where racism comes from, is that it comes from race, that the arrow goes the other way, that people are mean to each other and suspicious of each other, and therefore do all the things that we see around us: mass incarceration, wars, redlining, you name it, police brutality, that those things actually flow out of and are a result of differences between us. But what I want to try to convince you of today, if you're not already convinced of it, or maybe deepen your sense of it, is that the arrow actually goes the other way. That it's not differences between people that cause them to treat each other badly. It's the intent to treat each other badly that has led to our ideas about difference. And in this case, very specifically, the idea of race, that people can be meaningfully divided up into so-called races of people, is an idea that I think grows more out of racism, the intent or actions to oppress or exploit people based on those so-called differences. It's racism that creates the ideas of race, not the other way around. And that's very counterintuitive. And this is not my idea, by the way. This is an idea that I'm getting from a whole bunch of Black scholars who I think come to this conclusion one way or another. And this is what I want to try to convince you of. So let me plow ahead. I want to share with you pictured here are the scholars with, like, one or two sentence quotes from them. And, some are from longer ago and some are more contemporary, and you can guess which by the color of the photograph. But basically, I think there is an emerging consensus that what I just said is true among Black scholars. And part of the reason I put it this way is that I think the right-wing Fox News, the kind of attack on one of the lines of attack on Black studies and so-called critical race theory and anything related to Black history, is that it's like putting people into little identity boxes and kind of trapping them in this kind of identitarian prison, and that's what we're trying to do with all this. But actually, if you read these folks, if you read people who are really the pillars of Black studies, in my opinion, it's actually the opposite. It's that they're trying to show you how those identitarian boxes are made. And in showing you how they get made and remade over time, really what they're doing is exploding those boxes. So let me put in the chat right now something for you to look at. It's a little Jamboard. And Ashlyn, have you ever used a Jamboard before?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Chanel, have you? Okay, cool. Yeah. So here it is. And essentially what I'm going to ask you to do, actually, I can click over to it and show it to you a little bit here. So here is, like, let me widen my screen so you can see, like, here's the first frame of it. And it's a quote from a Trinidadian scholar and activist, C.L.R. James. And if you click on the little sticky note thing here below the arrow, you could make a little sticky note and put a comment or a question on here. And then you can click over at the top of the screen to the next frame, and you'll see a quote from Eric Williams, actually also from Trinidad. And there's Michelle Alexander. and there's Barbara Fields, and there's Frederick Douglass, and there's Ruth Wilson Gilmore. So have a look at these, kind of scan your eyes over them, and leave a comment or a question while you're doing so. And let's do it for, here I was proposing we spend 8 minutes on this, but let's see. Let me bring my frame back together. Oops, sorry. All right, take another minute or so to put any sticky notes, and then And it's okay to also ask questions. Comments or questions are welcome. And then let's discuss a little bit. All right, let's talk about your thoughts here. I'm noticing that there's a sticky here on this quote by Eric Williams. Endings sound so ominous, even more so when we've seen their turns to come. And seeing one here on Michelle Alexander's quote, the more differences we have, the more they can be exploited to prevent us from having relationships. Knowing that, maybe we can be better about understanding big differences. Oh, and here's another one. Barbara Fields. Not only about money, but also about superiority and control question. Well, let me just ask if any of you want to speak to any of those sticky notes.
Yeah, which one? I guess maybe slide 4. When it says not only about money, but also about superiority and control question. Are they saying that, like, if it were about money, then they would have just kept it all in Africa, but because it's more than that, they've expanded beyond, like, taken them away from somewhere?
No, I think she's saying the opposite. I think
Okay.
she's saying that if it was just about hatred, if it was just about segregation, if it was just about separateness, like, you know, I can't stand these Africans, we want to keep ourselves segregated from them, then why go through the trouble of kidnapping them? That the chief business of the colony was not producing white supremacy. That was not what they were trying to do. The chief business was the production of tobacco, cotton, and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting that I thought the other way around initially. I only read it one time, but I thought it was that relationship as opposed to the other way around, which is what you're also proposing about the whole race and racism and the arrow switching. So it's interesting what I'm not, I don't know, yeah, what I initially think as opposed to what the reality is.
Oh no, did we lose Ashlyn?
I didn't realize. No, I don't know. When did that happen?
Just now.
Okay. They're usually good about coming back if something happened or communicating that they have to leave early. So they got kicked off.
What do you propose? Should we message them?
Yeah, I can send a message. I'll send a text.
Okay. Nope, there's Ashlyn. Hey, Ashlyn, welcome back.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what just happened to my computer.
It's all good. I guess your computer doesn't want you to learn about the construction of race.
Right.
Well, before we move on, Ashlyn, I just want to give you an opportunity. Was there anything here that was confusing or that jumped out at you as interesting, or anything here that you latched onto on the Jamboard?
No, not really.
Do you feel like you understood any of them?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. Cool. All right, well, let's move on then. And as promised, get to this case study of Virginia. So the reason for, I think there's, let me put it this way. So we know that there are a lot of different ways that race gets constructed around the world. And it gets constructed one way in Brazil, and another way in the Caribbean, and another way in Florida, and another way in the British colony of Virginia. So this is just a case study, not necessarily the whole story, but it's a really interesting story, I think, because it's one of the constructions that in many ways is still impacting our world. And as more than one historian has pointed out, Virginia is really, like, how a baby grows from a fetus and a fetus grows from a single cell. There's an argument that Virginia is the first cell of what becomes the organism that becomes the United States. And so you can't say everything about the organism from that first cell, but you can say something about what's there in that first cell. And what's so interesting is that that first cell seems like it was a pretty ruthless endeavor. That, like a lot of Europeans, the British came looking for precious minerals and metals and, silver and gold. But they found a different kind of gold. They figured that they could grow tobacco, not for themselves personally to smoke, but to sell. And this whole thing of the world that we live in, of like alienated commodity production, where we buy things that are made by people we never meet. And that's not just something for like the elites, that's how everybody lives, as a kind of mass consumer market for things that are produced on a huge scale. This is part of the story of the origin of making the world work that way, in this kind of capitalistic, industrial way of working. And it was hard to come here. It's such hard work to grow tobacco. It's hard to figure out who was going to do it. And like that, Eric Williams quote, like, their turn too will come, talking about the Africans, like they tried everybody. They tried indentured people from England. They tried kidnapping people from England. They tried dragging people out of the prisons. They tried the indigenous people. They tried to get them. And there are problems with all these different groups in various ways, but they still use them to try to grow tobacco. And first of all, how are you going to get anybody to do that kind of work? That very, very hard work. Why would they do that? Why would they work for you doing it? And so they turn to slavery. That is, they turn to, this is a job that you can't leave, and that we're going to make you do, or we're going to, you know, if you want to live, you're going to keep doing it, a way of working. And then eventually they turn, so first they start basically enslaving people one way or another, and then later turn to Africans, and they start bringing in Africans. And what's wild about it is that they don't right away have everything figured out about what the deal is going to be for these Africans, like what's their status. And so some of them, just like some indigenous people and just like some indentured servants from England, some of them end up being free. Some of them end up owning property. Some of them end up owning slaves. And we have stories of people in Virginia who are African who do all of these things. And so what's wild, or what's kind of mind-blowing, is the way that it takes time for them to set up the rules that are so familiar to us about what it means to be a slave for life and what it means to have black skin. And that is something that evolves over time. So right now, what I want to show you is a 2-page document that's just a list that I made, and my sources at the bottom of it. I'll paste it in the chat. But it's basically a list of laws from like 1639 to 1705. And it kind of blows my mind. I don't think, I just put it in the chat. You don't need to read it word for word. You can kind of scan your eyes over it and read around it. I would say read some laws from the beginning. Read some laws from the middle. Read some laws from the end of this list. Obviously, the laws keep going. And then there's a little chart there that shows you how many Africans are living in Virginia at different points in time. Take like 5 minutes to just look this over. And then I want to talk about, be ready to what I'm going to ask you in 5 minutes from now is, what do you notice about this list? So start looking now.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
It says that you need access.
Oh, no. Okay, let me give you access. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can work on this. Thought I gave access. Okay, let me see. Is there another way? Maybe I can drag it into the chat. Oh, I thought I had done this. Darn. So sorry.
No, it's okay.
Huh. Oh gosh. All right. Well, I guess here, I'll show it to you because I don't see a way around this. We'll just look at the first part. Okay. Share my screen. Sorry about that. And I'll send it to both of you so you can have it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be great.
Wait, now it's doing it again. It's saying it won't let you see this. right? You're not able to see this, right?
No. Oh, okay,
oh,
there
There
we
we
go.
go. There we go. Okay.
I was like, dang, all these tech problems.
Okay. They really don't want you to learn this.
Exactly.
It's like Ron DeSantis software here. All right, so I'll just show you the first part of it. And scroll up a little bit so you can see a little. All right, take like one more minute and then let's talk about what you notice here. What do you notice? What's something you notice? Ashlyn, let's have you go first this time.
The law for 1669 about the casual killing of slaves, that's just crazy. Like, that's really, I've like never heard of that before. I was like just really surprised when I saw it.
So let me ask you, I mean, yeah, first of all, yeah, like, wow. But let me ask you, why do you think they passed that law? I mean, we don't really know, right? We're not like deep in the weeds of Virginia history here, but if you just had to guess, why do you think they would make a law like that? Why would they write this down?
I think they'd probably make it because like it was already happening in the past a bunch where they were casually killing slaves, and then people would get mad about it and like try to like make them like go to jail or something. And so they decided, yeah, I'm just gonna make this a law to where they can't take me to jail, you know?
Yeah. What do you notice, Chanel?
The things that stick out to me are just how they take away like your right to defend yourself, and then how they use, kind of disgusting, but how they use women's bodies to grow the slavery population, and then they have more people to control. And then I don't know if this has anything.
Where are you seeing that, Shiva? Chanel?
Like it says the growth of Black population, 1625, 23, and then 1648, it gets to 300. And then after that, it goes all the way to 2000. Like in that time, I mean, I don't know how many generations would fit in that time, but I guess
How do you-
to me, that feels like they're growing the population. And then it says that any child born to an enslaved woman will also be a slave.
1662. Do you see that, Ashlyn?
Okay, what did she say? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just noticed how, like in 1662, they passed a law that said any child born to an enslaved woman will also be a slave. And then we see the population grow like to 2000 and 1671. And that's a pretty big jump from 300 to 2000 that time. So I noticed that.
If in 1662 they say any child born to an enslaved woman will also be a slave, that means before that, that wasn't the rule. So an enslaved woman could have a child and their status could be ambiguous. It means they're not necessarily a slave. I mean, if, you know, in a paternalistic, patriarchal society, often the status of a kid follows the father. So if you're a slave owner and you rape a woman you own, well, then your kid might be free because it's your kid and you're free. But they changed the law. Not for white women. They changed the law for the people they were enslaving. An enslaved woman's kid is enslaved also automatically. Status follows the mother.
Wild. I didn't think about that.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Not only a license to rape, an incentive to rape. Is there anything else that jumped out at you, Ashlyn?
No.
I think it's interesting that in 1670, so for every law, imagine that before that law, so it was the other thing, like the other thing was happening. So for every law they write, it's like, you know, sometimes I think about this, like I have little kids, and like when you're playing a game with little kids, you know how they always want to keep changing the rules when they're losing? It's like, okay, new rule, you can't do that, you know? This feels like they just keep changing the rules in their favor. Like 1670, free Africans and Native Americans who had been baptized are forbidden to buy Christian, meaning like what we would call white, but they didn't call them that yet, Christian servants. So that means they were doing it. Well, what I don't have time to show you is that in 1676, there's this huge rebellion called Bacon's Rebellion. That's really an anti-indigenous rebellion. It's a bunch of white people who are not super rich. They're not the planters. They're not the people making the laws, but they're led by a kind of elite guy named Nathaniel Bacon. Almost like, I mean, it's a bad analogy, but almost like a kind of Trump figure, an elite guy who whips up people poorer than him in anger at the system. But actually a bunch of Black people, a bunch of Africans go along with him, and they burn Jamestown to the ground, and they have to send a fleet from England to crush this rebellion. That's 1676. So after that, the laws get even tighter, and they really start just boxing in people one after the other in various ways, taking away rights. Ashlyn, I'm going to see if you can guess. It's not here on the screen, but you know the 1619 project, right? That date is like so popularized. That's not the first time Africans came to the New World, but it's the first time Africans came to a British colony in the New World, to Virginia. And so at some point along here, you know there's going to be a law that's like Africans can't vote. Ashlyn, I want you to guess, and then Chanel, when did they pass that law, would you think? Just take a guess. Pick a year.
I'd say like 1620.
Right. Like they come in 1619, pass that law in 1620. You guys cannot vote. It makes sense. Thank you for playing. Okay, Chanel, it's your turn. When did they pass a law, would you guess, saying that these people can't vote?
Like late 20th, wait, no, late 19th century, like 1880s, 90s.
The answer is, you're both incorrect, but the answer is on this slide I'm about to show you now, 1723. Now, but I appreciate you, Chanel, trying to go in the other direction. So
Yeah.
like they bring Africans and the next year they say you can't vote. And you're like, no, maybe it took a long time. Well, it did take a long time. It did take a long time. They didn't pass that law until 1723. Now, the quote here, this is wild. The quote on your screen is from somebody who protested in a white man, not any white man, the Attorney General protested this law in 1723. And I want to give you a dramatic reading of this so you can like hear him. I cannot see why one free man, now he's saying free people of color, right? Like not enslaved people, free people, like the kinds who would have been purchasing Christian servants before they stopped them from doing that. I cannot see why one freeman should be used worse than another, merely upon account of his complexion. To vote at elections of officers, either for a county or parish, etc., is incident to every free man who is possessed of a certain proportion of property, meaning land and maybe slaves. And therefore, when several Negroes have merited their freedom and obtained it by their industry, meaning by their hard work, have acquired that proportion of property so that the above-mentioned incidental rights of liberty are actually vested in them. For my own part, I am persuaded that it cannot be just by a general law without any allegation of crime or other demerit whatsoever to strip all free persons of a black complexion, some of whom may perhaps be of considerable substance, from those rights, which are so justly valuable to every free man. That's not like some rabble-rouser. That's the Attorney General. Now, this quote blows my mind, and it gets me back to the whole idea that racism is what makes our ideas of race. In this quote, we see that 100 years into Africans being the main labor source to grow tobacco for sale, being enslaved for life, their murder being justified, their rape being justified. 100 years into that system, the Attorney General did not think it was just to strip them of all rights just because, if some of them were free, just because of their complexion. But we know that that's what ended up happening. We know that system where the whole system treats you one way because of your complexion. But the fact that the Attorney General of Virginia didn't see it that way shows me that it was not automatic what the rules were going to be. What was the meaning of having black skin? It wasn't automatic. It wasn't 1620. It took 104 years for them to figure out that we need to stop these people from voting. That's a long time. I think it's that they kept trying to figure out how to control and make money off of these people and run their society, that meant they had to keep making adjustments to the meaning of black skin. They had to build up and build up and build up over years. What is that going to mean? Its meaning was not automatic. It took a long time for them to figure out what they wanted it to mean. And that shows us, I think, that it's the intent, it's the oppression, it's the exploitation, it's the intent to treat people differently and get over on people by doing so, whether in subprime loans or, gentrification or on the job or any number of ways, that racism is still very profitable and useful. It's that intent that drives the meaning behind what we call, and really the definition of what we call, races of people. So what do you think? Ashlyn first, have I convinced you? Oh, let me look at the chat. My computer's acting up. All good. Chanel, where are you at the end of this conversation?
I am convinced. Yeah, because the whole trying to figure it out, changing the boxes, even so much so that they've even changed what they've decided will be the box over time, and then we kind of go along with it. So the contradictions and the absence of logic, yeah, it makes me think about that. I know humans are contradicting, but damn,
Yeah. I think there's a whole other side to this, which maybe you're hinting at, which is the way that we take up these identities sometimes and then take pride in them and try to build, it's a source of energy and it's not just race, but you could say the same thing about queer folks or gender, or, it's part of what we're doing is a contested terrain of people trying to put you in a category and treat you a certain way. And then you have to figure out how to gather inner resources within yourself and with other people in that community to try to define yourself in some new way against their definition of you. So it's this is a one-sided presentation about the ways they make these boxes. It doesn't tell us about what people themselves do with it, which can sometimes be beautiful and amazing and creative and liberatory. I find inspiration in seeing how the categories get made. I think that, to me, holds out hope that our struggles, even the struggles when we're taking up and trying to take pride in a category, ultimately can lead towards a liberation that can burst them open. Well, thank you both. I have a book.
Thank you. No, I'll take that. We'll have to put in the resources.
Yeah. My book's about a student uprising in a very conservative school where my dad went, Tuskegee in Alabama, founded by Booker T. Washington.
And
talk
thank
about-
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, you've got me thinking now because I always get so caught up in the boxes and the categories and always like growing up, not having a box to check. And then now there are those boxes to check. And then I feel some type of way about checking those boxes.
Totally.
So
Totally.
yeah, it's interesting, but I like maybe framing it to be like inspiration
Mm,
as opposed to like sometimes my frustration.
well, Ashlyn or Chanel, any last well, that's let me ask Ashlyn, any last thoughts or questions from you? Ashlyn's unable to unmute.
Oh, I can try to ask to unmute you. I did that actually. Did a button pop up where you can select it a different way?
Oh, good. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Ashlyn. I appreciate you and your input. We'll see each other on Wednesday and Friday. Let me know if you can't come to either one. But we also, okay, Ashlyn says, I really appreciate everything I did here.
Very cool.
Thank you. And Brian, really appreciate you. As always, we'll keep in touch and look forward to seeing how we can also support you. We'll definitely share that book out with folks, and parts of this lesson too, I think are great. Hi, Ashley.
All right. Well, have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Take care.